Hey guys, and welcome back. Today's going to be a relatively short video just going over one brand new poll that was just recently released here from Emerson Polling, taking a look specifically at the state of New Mexico. And if you'd like to take a look at all of the data in this poll for yourself, I'll link it down in the video description. Now, we typically don't get state-specific polls out of New Mexico because they are much later on during primary season. Actually, they don't hold their primary until June 2nd, which is basically right at the tail end of things. So not likely to have a huge impact on the 2020 Democratic primary, but still some interesting numbers nonetheless, and a state that you'd like to look at in terms of how things are trending in that head-to-head matchup between Donald Trump and some of these upper-tier Democratic hopefuls. And we're seeing some very interesting numbers and some very positive ones specifically for Bernie Sanders. With this head-to-head matchup, he's absolutely crushing it, where he's ahead by 18 percentage points in New Mexico, 59% of support for him, compared to 41% for Donald Trump. And then actually it's Pete Buttigieg who does the second best with a 10 percentage point lead over Trump, 55% to 45%. And then you have Biden and Warren who are doing their worst in that head-to-head matchup, where Biden's leading by just 8 percentage points along with Elizabeth Warren. And with New Mexico being on the safer end of Democratic states in terms of a head-to-head general election matchup, you'd like to see your candidate at least having a double-digit lead. But in this instance, neither Warren or Biden were able to reach that, where you were able to get up to 10 percentage point lead for Buttigieg, and then just a dominant 18 percentage point lead there for Bernie Sanders. Now, we're going to have to continue to see how things trend out of the state of New Mexico, whether this is just a blip or a trend specifically for candidates like a Biden and Warren who are underperforming what you would typically expect. Now, when we see these state-by-state specific polls, it's generally a situation where Sanders as well as Biden do their best in that head-to-head matchup with Trump, and then usually Warren's just a little bit behind them, and then Buttigieg another step behind that. But this New Mexico poll is showing something that's a little bit different, where Sanders has that 18 percentage point lead, 10 percentage points better than either of the other top two candidates, Biden as well as Warren. So then we go up and take a look at how the 2020 Democratic primary is playing out in this instance. It's very competitive at the top, and then there's quite a bit of a gap between the top two options and the rest of the field, where you have Sanders leading the way at 28 percentage points, followed by Joe Biden right there at 27%, and then quite a gap until you actually get down to Andrew Yang, who's in third place at 10 percentage points, Elizabeth Warren at 8%, followed by Buttigieg at 7 percentage points, and then all the other candidates are at 3 percentage points or less. And again, guys, it is important to note that New Mexico is much further on in the primary process, so not likely to have much in the way of an impact unless things are extremely close and competitive, even until going into the month of June, right at the back end there of this process. And we can see the disparity continues to be there in the age demographics. The 18 to 29-year-olds, 44% have Sanders as their first choice. 36% of individuals between 30 to 49 have Sanders as their top choice. And then Bernie's numbers start falling off, where 50 to 64, he's at 22%. And then those over the age of 65, he's at just 7% of support. And it's the opposite for Joe Biden. That continues to be the case, where he's getting 17% of the vote for those under the age of 50, and then 37% of the vote for those who are over the age of 50 in this particular poll. So those are the numbers that I want to touch on here in today's video. Kind of some interesting data. We don't always get these state-specific polls looking specifically at a state like New Mexico because it's so late in the process, but still interesting nonetheless to see how things are playing out in this instance. And some different numbers here from New Mexico than what we're typically seeing in the overall general scenario of this 2020 Democratic primary, where you actually have Yang doing a bit better out west in this instance in third place, and Warren continuing to show struggles. We're seeing her take a step back in a lot of those key early states, but also in this one not doing so well. And then the head-to-head matchup in the general election just really took me back, and a little bit of a surprise there. Perhaps it is just an outlier, but nonetheless, the Sanders campaign has to be feeling really good about these numbers and how he's absolutely crushing Trump in this head-to-head matchup, whereas the other upper-tier Democratic hopefuls, it's slightly more competitive, but still they have the lead as well over Donald Trump. So those are the numbers I wanted to touch on. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for my next video.